Story 1. When I was 23, I aborted a pregnancy. It has caused me a lot of pain over the years, emotionally, but I would never, not in a million years, support banning it. The case of non-viable pregnancies alone is horrifying. Story 2. If I was American and anything other than a white heterosexual cisgender man, I would get out of there as fast as I could. Or at least go to a strongly Democratic state and hope for the Republicans to never again get anywhere near the White House. Story 3. I don't feel good. I'm a police officer. I will not enforce the laws that they recently implemented in Oklahoma. Someone else can take the case. I will not put handcuffs on someone for abortion. I will not put handcuffs on someone for having a gay relationship, and I will not put handcuffs on someone for being married and gay. I will happily lose my job over this. In 10 years, we will see a large increase in the crime rate as children are forced to be born into poverty, which I believe is what the government desires. More poverty-stricken, low-class workers keep the social security system inflated for another 10 years. Low income increases the crime rate, and the cycle continues. Things are bleak, and in all honesty, if this is the hill I lose everything on, then so be it. Story 4. As someone who lives in Missouri, the populated non-rural part, I am extremely upset. I am upset this happened. I am upset the place that I love is about to get criticized for something that only rural people vote for. I am upset for every woman I have ever called a friend. And I am at a loss for what I am supposed to do now. But the anger is very real. Story 5. I'm sorry. I can't assist with this request. Story 6. It saddens me greatly to realize police officers will not save living, breathing children from scenarios in a school, but will spend all of their resources to track down a woman who had an abortion. I turned off notifications for this post. There are too many people just commenting out of anger instead of thinking for a few seconds. For all the people with real, constructive responses, thank you. Story 7. I think I'm having a panic attack. I was just told my pregnancy isn't likely to be viable at the end of last week, but there is still a heartbeat. I don't know what this is going to change for me in the next few days. I have an appointment at 1 to help determine if we need to terminate, but now I'm not sure what options I have. I am so scared and angry. Story 8. It is just the start. Clarence Thomas wrote today that contraception and gay marriage are next. The court is giving you guns but taking away everything else. Story 9. I feel the urge to leave and move to a state that aligns more with my beliefs in women's constitutional rights to abortion, or even another country if I can. I feel angry, sad, and scared. Being a woman in this country is becoming a living nightmare. Story 10. As a healthcare worker, this is going to be a nightmare. I'm legitimately scared about what lengths people will go to without safe options for birth control. Our healthcare system is stretched thin as it is, and emergency medicine is a rubber band barely holding it together. I don't like the implications of how this can potentially break something so fragile, especially after the fallout of the COVID pandemic. Story 11. If you think only women are affected by the abortion ban, you are wrong. Forcing babies into poverty will only increase crime rates because children and adults of low economic status have more incentive to join gangs and commit crimes. Imagine trying to buy a house or get a job with all of the extra competition in this economy. Imagine trying to have a child with your wife, but there are medical complications that make your fetus non-viable, requiring an abortion, and she dies for no reason. People you know personally will be affected and may die or suffer immensely as a result. This affects the entire country in a very negative way. You might think this won't affect you because most of us never lived in a reality where abortion was banned federally. All it takes is bad luck for it to affect you. Story 12. I grew up in the Bible Belt, and overturning Roe v. Wade was one of the most prominent talking points from politicians campaigning in the area. The dog caught the car. I did not think it would happen. What will they run on now? I am kind of afraid to find out. Story 13. To those not considering the impact abortion bans will have on the living, breathing women and existing families of this nation. Overall, 23.7% of women have had an abortion since Roe was decided. That number has dropped to around 18% for women in recent years due to better availability of contraception and more comprehensive sexual education, even if via the internet. If you truly care about reducing abortion, this is where to concentrate your effort. Those wanting Roe overturned and abortion criminalized are in the minority, approximately 30% and 20%. This prohibition is not the will of the people. Those who think their lifestyle means it can never happen to them, look around you. Every fourth woman you see has made the choice to end a pregnancy. In your church, in your school, in your friend group, in your family. Maybe you're lying to protect yourself from, well, we all know what you're protecting yourself from. It happens all the time. Even the women screaming outside clinics, them too. Roughly the same number of women today have miscarriages as have abortions. Miscarriages often require a dilation and curettage to protect the woman from sepsis and other complications. A dilation and curettage is an abortion. If you think your wife, your daughter, yourself will be treated well by medical personnel because not me, I suggest you read some of the pre-Roe horror stories. About 40% of women will be directly and negatively impacted by this intrusion. None of that 40% owe you a single cell of their body. At any given time, there are over 100,000 children waiting to be adopted in the United States. There's no shortage of children to adopt. The women most likely today to abort are those of us most in need. Poverty-stricken women, often women of color in their 20s or 30s, often having children already, who don't have access to decent healthcare, education, or contraception, who work constantly and still need assistance just to feed the children they have. These are the women most impacted. The United States has the worst maternal mortality rate of the developed world. Women of color die at 3 times the rate of white women. For those thinking, I don't want to pay for, you already pay for it one way or another. As a community, we all do. The only question to answer is, does the community spend to educate and lift everyone up? Or does the community spend to shame, demonize, and imprison those with the least? The clerk checking out your 99-cent plastic bowl from Walmart is likely working as many jobs and/or hours as possible only to still need public assistance to feed their children, that they then get shamed for needing/having. Before starting any back-in-my-day stories, really think about what it would have been like for you 30 to 40 years ago if you instead made $70 for every $100. What if you had no family to help? I remember taking $20 and a calculator to the grocery store to feed us for an entire week, because that's all I had. Now take that $20 away and another $100 for good measure. That's where today's poor live. Walmart recorded record profits, thanks in part to the corporate welfare of low wages, no or low taxes, and an economic system manipulated to allow the wealth of an entire nation to be siphoned off into private hands. Story 14. All these people who said that the vaccine is their choice and the government can't force them to take it because it's their body now have to take it since the government apparently has control over their bodies. Story 15. I feel angry and betrayed, especially as the wording of the ruling clears the way for other rights to be done away with in the same manner. A direct quote from their ruling states, "Next, the court examines whether the right to obtain an abortion is rooted in the nation's history and tradition, and whether it is an essential component of ordered liberty. The court finds that the right to abortion is not deeply rooted in the nation's history and traditions." Guess what else, from their standpoint, fits that criteria? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer rights, transgender rights, etc. rights. I give it a month, at most 6 months, before the Supreme Court of the United States gets a case on their docket that deals with LGBTQ rights such as marriage. And I feel the writing is on the wall in regard to how this court will rule. So, I already live in a state with a trigger law about abortion. Abortion in my state will become damn near illegal within 30 days. The only abortion that will be legal is in the case of life-threatening pregnancies. My state is already trying to find loopholes in the law to discredit same-sex marriage. As a lesbian, I don't like the writing on the wall. I have less to worry about in regards to abortion rights, though I am still very upset that an important right has been effectively taken away for many women, but this ruling doesn't bode well for the future. Story 16. I doubt this comment will be seen, given that nearly 4,000 comments have already been made, but I'll just say that the logic used to justify this decision is honestly more worrying than the decision itself. It's bad enough that the door is opened for outlawing abortion, but the logic used to justify overruling a previous Supreme Court verdict can be used to roll back nearly anything. It doesn't matter that they wrote in the decision that this logic shouldn't be used for other situations, because that's not how precedent works. They set the precedent that decisions can be rolled back if they don't conform to an arbitrary interpretation of what the Constitution originally guaranteed, and so this can be used for just about anything. They can always say, well, it makes sense this time. Not next time, but this time. We promise we won't do it again. Probably. It's no wonder that people have little confidence in the Supreme Court now. They did it to themselves. Quick edit: since the Reddit algorithm has blessed my comment with visibility, I encourage people to reach at least the syllabus portion of the full decision text, which can be found on the Supreme Court's website. This short and lays out the reasoning behind the decision. Regardless of your feelings about the outcome, it's valuable to understand the arguments and form your own decision as to whether they make sense. Of course, the dissents are well worth a read as well. I feel the need to add this part because some critics seem to be misunderstanding my point. I never said that the problem is that the court overturned precedent. The court mentions Plessy versus Ferguson being overturned on the 4th page of the decision text. You think I don't realize that the Supreme Court has overturned decisions before? My point is that the logic they used here is insidious. The idea of implicit rights is foundational to many rights we currently enjoy and take for granted, such as the right to privacy. The decision here calls that very logic into question, and with it, a huge number of previous rulings that can be overturned using this decision as justification. Story 17. It amazes me how passionately America cares for unborn children and simultaneously couldn't give two thoughts about living, breathing kids getting shot and killed on a weekly basis. It seems kids' lives only matter in the womb. Or maybe, just maybe, this is the ugly face of the subtle epidemic of misogyny. Additional point: I wonder how many of these pro-life advocates will be willing to register to adopt. I have a feeling if all those pro-life advocates were made to adopt the children that will now be given up, they would quickly become pro-choice. Everyone's opinion on others changes when they start to impact their own life. Story 18. I'm a straight, white, Christian man, and I'm upset. The only places in my book that mention abortion are how-tos. Rabbinic scholars, who know much more about Old Testament law than these fundamentalist televangelists and lawmakers do, have all agreed that life begins at breath, not conception. A man who causes a woman to miscarry is sentenced to pay a fine equal to a loss of property, not life. I'm disgusted by members of my faith who disobey both God and their nation by mixing church and state, by giving to God what is Caesar's. It's not going to hurt me personally, but last I checked, I was told to care for those not like me, not go out of my way to make their life difficult. Forget this. Edit. This will affect me personally. I just wanted to put forward the idea that we shouldn't support human rights only when we benefit from them. Rights have their place even when we don't benefit personally. I'm not gay, but I want my gay friend to have the right to marry who they choose. Period. Second edit. Don't give me awards for having a set of opinions. There are local women in your area who will need money to cover the cost of their out-of-state trip to get an abortion. Give to those causes. Story 19. No abortion, no healthcare, no maternity leave, no affordable housing, school violence, police authorities with too much power and close to zero control and responsibility. Lobbying. America feels like a premium third world. Story 20. Our fertility doctor has informed us that he will no longer provide services to me and my wife given the higher chance of needing a medically necessary abortion. Any stillborn child would now legally be required to be carried to full term. This is far too dangerous for my wife's health in his medical opinion. So intense rage is how I'm feeling. Story 21. Like Texas is about to be a really bad place to be for anyone remotely civilized and open-minded. Letting the current legislature go all out now that they can hide behind a states' rights argument is going to be scary. I guess, for the first time in my life, leaving is on the table. It's a shame, too, since I'm a University of Texas educated, sixth-generation Texan, but the rural minority around here has officially been given permission to act on their worst impulses. I'm out. Story 22. like I'm being held hostage by a bunch of extremists who are in the game for no reason but to fill their wallets, doing it all under the guise of religion. Story 23. I feel sick to my stomach. I would have never thought this settled law would have been overturned, but here we are. I have a daughter, and I am raising her in a state that is mainly conservative. I am a teacher for children with special needs, and I expect my caseload to skyrocket over the next decade. Story 24. I'm pretty furious. The Republicans are doing everything in their power to halt any kind of progress in the United States. We have all these checks and balances in place that Republicans use with malicious intent because they know the Democrats won't reciprocate. The fact that the Supreme Court is so conservative now because of that turtle-faced leader just makes my blood boil. Obama. Oh, I want to confirm this justice 8 months before I leave office. McConnell. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not enough time to do our due diligence and doesn't look great, like you're just forcing a progressive into the position. I won't allow the vote to happen under these circumstances. For years past, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies just before the election. McConnell. We are not leaving this room until the president's choice is confirmed.